From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the State of Client Acquisition. This is your host, Michael Bohannes. In this podcast, we go deep into all aspects of organic B2B client acquisition for coaches, consultants, and small B2B CEOs with a focus on LinkedIn. And we cover the entire acquisition process from offer creation to positioning to content, outbound, and phone sales. And we want to make this all about you, the listener. So if you have a question, please go to stateofclientacquisition.com to submit a question to this podcast. So today we kick off with the topic of how you can develop trust with people on a sales call. We cover some questions from the listeners, such as what conversation starters have worked the best for me, whether you can focus purely on content, / inbound and not do any outbound, and whether you should write a book to further your business. So I hope you find something valuable in today's episode. So let's get right into it. So I was going over my numbers recently and I discovered that my closing rate was pretty good in the last couple of months. And I still had in mind some of my numbers from the summer of 2020, which were very bad. And I thought, wow, the latest numbers are really so much better. And my average closing rate now is about 35% these days, up from a pretty bad phase of 10% that I had in the summer. And that's due to different reasons. I think COVID did play a part in it. Maybe there was, definitely there was also the fact that we had a baby in the summer. So there was quite a little bit of lack of productivity there. And I think I lost my game a little bit then, which is all good if it's for the right reasons. But between the summer and now, there are quite a few changes that I made. So I wanted to give you my take on what I did recently that has impacted these numbers, because I think some of those things could be relevant to you and your business. I believe that when someone declines to work with you, although they could objectively benefit from working with you, it's usually because of a lack of trust, one way or another. That's at the heart of the matter. They somehow don't trust that your method, whatever you're selling, will get them the results that they are hoping for. And that could be because they don't trust you. For example, that you're not trying to sell them something that doesn't suit their situation, or that they don't trust that the method that you're selling is really applicable to them. So that's one way, it's a broad, they don't trust you, they don't trust your competence, they don't trust your intentions. That could be one thing. The other thing could be that they don't trust themselves, and that's especially applicable in many coaching offers. And they just don't trust that they will stick with it, to have the discipline to get the results that they need. And the answer to all of those problems is, I strongly believe, is to build trust across multiple dimensions. And that's what I'm going to cover today, because I believe that the reason that I've gone from 10% in the summer to 35% recently is to be found in a multitude of trust building measures that I did. So these are the buckets of where you build trust. Bucket number one is, I call it the shop window bucket. How your business looks to someone who comes across it. And here it's all about your website, how professional it looks, your LinkedIn profile, case studies and testimonials, and whether the people feel an affinity to the people in those case studies and testimonials. Are they like me? Do they sound like they have similar challenges that I have? Also, it's about the content that you're publishing. Is it high quality? And does it resonate with your audience? Another thing that I found really, really important is having free resources that are very high quality. I've recently come across someone who's in my space. I wanted to look at their lead magnet, kind of the free resource that they advertise. And it was real crap. It was like a one-pager with like a formula of how to grow your business. And it had like a bunch of like terms on it, like bullet points of like how to get word of your business out there. And it just listed Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's like, sorry, this is useless advice. Just listing various social media platforms. How is that going to help me actually grow my business? So I just recently saw that, and I thought that one of the reasons why my engagement has improved is because I created what I call the Action Taker Challenge, which is a free program very, very detailed. I think I put some 50 hours of work into it, all in all. And that's creating probably even more, I think, probably somewhere between 50 and 100 hours. And essentially it's a free version of my course, something that will help you kickstart your outbound prospecting, a little bit of inbound as well, but it's mainly aimed at outbound, so that you get yourself a call with a qualified prospect in a matter of 3 days. And having these kind of free resources that are really high quality will build enormous amounts of trust. And then on your LinkedIn, there's a bunch of different things that make a big difference in terms of trust. So I wanted to cover that. First of all, of course, the content that needs to be high quality, and ideally there should be good amount of engagement on it. Not like it doesn't have to be in the dozens of or hundreds. I just think that people need to look at your content and they see that you are publishing stuff that is applicable to them and that gets some kind of response. If that's not there, then they will be skeptical whether you really understand your target audience. And by that, they of course mean themselves. So do you understand me? If you don't post content that kind of gets to the core of what I need, if you are publishing content, some kind of political crap, or just post pictures of your kids or your cats, well, that won't really get them very confident in what you do. Another thing on your LinkedIn profile that is we're still in the shop window bucket of preliminary things. Like this is all the stuff that you have to do before somebody starts interacting with you. One important thing that I see several consultants do, I think in a suboptimal way, is stop doing other things than your main thing. For example, I saw a business development consultant on LinkedIn who was also advertising her Etsy business, her Etsy store, where she was selling hand knitted scarves, I believe. And that's just not ideal, because obviously she's then not focused on business development in the B2B space, which was her main job. And if you have something like this, where you are shown that you are splitting your focus, that is not particularly trust inducing. And then another thing on your LinkedIn profile is avoid plastering your phone number across your LinkedIn. There are some people who even put it into their headline. I believe that this is not very trust-inducing, because you are signaling with it that you are someone who's absolutely willing to get interrupted at any time of the day, especially if it's a mobile phone number, that you're willing to be interrupted, and that is not really how the high-status people operate. No one who's making 100 grand or more per year has their phone number available for anyone to call on LinkedIn. There are ways to asynchronously get in touch with you where you don't need to offer your phone number. Okay, good. So that is, roughly speaking, bucket number one, the shop window bucket. Now let's look at bucket number two, and that is the process that you have implemented between them contacting you and getting on the call and getting on that final sales call. And that could be usually in the space of consultants, coaches, and small B2B CEOs. The way how you go about it is that you have a conversation on LinkedIn, quick chat back and forth, and then you invite them on the call. And what happens between then? First of all, you ideally want to have some kind of scheduling tool, so you don't have to be chasing for something back and forth. That scheduling tool obviously should have your branding. That's one thing. Ideally, it should even be on your website, but it's fine to have Calendly. But all these kind of things are marginally improving things, kind of present a marginal improvement. So if you're able to have your scheduling link embedded on your website, and then maybe you even take them through a few questions that qualify them, not too many, especially if you were doing outbound, you cannot present them with a detailed questionnaire, but just something that will help us prepare. If you ask them 2 to 3 questions, that is possible, and you can do that. And it will be also trust inducing that you are a professional who has this process in place. And then even, for example, this is what I've had, and this is, I believe this is one of the things that has helped me to increase my conversion rate considerably, is I have one short video, 7 minutes, where I present what I do to people, just so that they don't come on the call thinking, for example, that I do lead gen as a service for them. I've had a couple of times where people misunderstood that. So I'm really making it clear, this is what we do. We provide coaching for getting clients on LinkedIn. And I also present a couple of other small things. Plus, also this video is on a page where there's tons of client testimonials. So that helps as well to indoctrinate them, so to speak, before they come on the call. But it's a short video. It shouldn't be long, just so that you avoid losing them. They shouldn't be doing too much work. So that's in overall, from scheduling to viewing the video, that's about 10 minutes. I think that's pretty okay. And then once you've had the short call with them, just a qualifying call, you then offer them, and this is what I do, I recommend you do that too, invite them to watch a longer video where they can learn really much more about how it actually works, the collaboration with you. Again, just to answer their questions, to present your offer, not fully, not completely, but just to give them an idea of how it works and what they would need to do to work with you. And that, again, on a page where there's a lot of testimonials, samples from your training or whatever you do, client results, case studies, and so on. All of that is trust inducing. And also what it will do, it will help you polarize people to see if they want to work with you or not. I've recently had someone cancel a call after I've sent her through this process. And she canceled the call because, and I don't know why, honestly, but I think it could be because she saw the video and for some reason she decided that it was not for her. But that's great, because I'd rather have somebody cancel the call than be on the call and not being a fit and then not wanting to work with me. I save that time and I'd rather spend that time on prospecting or creating more content. So that is the bucket number 2, which is the process you have implemented between them contacting you and the actual call. And then bucket number 3 is how you behave on the call. There's a lot of opportunity to lose trust there and a lot of opportunity to mess things up generally. So let's cover these individual points. In bucket 3, being too eager on the sales call can really destroy trust. The more eager you are, the more amateur you are being perceived. So if you agree with everything they say, you give them a lot of unspecified compliments, you are exaggerating how great their business looks and so on. Anything that is like too complimentary before you've built up any rapport is not good. Don't be too eager. Don't present the offer too quickly. It's really try to have a conversation at eye level. In the same bucket is not trying to sell, but aiming to find the truth. That is such an important principle where you will get so much trust if on the call you actively suggest, hey, honestly, it doesn't really sound like I might be the right fit for you because, and then you give them the reasons. Then they maybe start qualifying themselves to you. And that is an ideal place. You really want to be in that place where they actually want to work with you. And you are, and this is not a kind of like a scheme, a tactic. You need to be absolutely genuine on that. I regularly get people. The other day I had somebody on the call who said that it's working really well for her on Facebook and she's working part-time. So I said, honestly, why would you want to work with me? It's quite intense to work with me. And if it's working already on Facebook, don't split your attention and also go on LinkedIn. Just keep doing what you're doing. And when you're full-time, then we can maybe talk about working with LinkedIn, but not so early on. So that's pretty key, that you are not trying to sell, but aim to find the truth if they are someone who would benefit from working with you. Another thing in bucket 3 is alpha status. Means that you are not a pushover. You kind of portray this quiet authority where they don't even come into the temptation to be in any way unpleasant with you. A few examples of alpha status: calling out poor behavior, for example, when they're in a noisy place. You just say, sorry, I have a real hard time understanding you. Would it be better if we rescheduled, please? Because it's quite noisy in the background. I had this once where somebody was in a cafeteria and it was super loud in the background. It's just, you cannot do that. Also, alpha status, not allowing them to get away with BS excuses. For example, if they say, well, I never make decisions quickly. If it's appropriate, if it's warranted, if you think that this is a mistake, then just challenge them on it and say, okay, well, how has that worked out for you in the past? Another aspect of alpha status is being willing to end the call when they show themselves not ready or prepared. If they say that they only would be willing to work with you 2 months from now, then, you kind of wind the call down and say, okay, great. I suggest that we put something into the calendar now for 2 months from now, and then we talk. Another way how to behave on the call that's trust inducing is being willing to call out a weird mood and allowing things to get awkward. If for some reason you, for example, are trying to figure out how much money they're making now and they're not telling you, then it's time to call that out. Sorry, it's like when you're going to the doctor and you don't tell them what is actually really going on. What is your problem? In that case, you are, for example, in my case, where I help people to grow their revenue. If they don't tell me how much they're making right now, I'm going to call them out on it. And then I'm not going to continue the call if they don't tell me, because that's just, and I'm okay with them giving me a range. I don't want to put them on the spot. If they really make zero in the last 3 months, I don't want them to have to tell me that. But I usually say, okay, is it less than 3,000 a month? And they say, yes. Okay, that's enough for me. I don't need to know more, because it's a sensitive topic for some people, but I need to know how much they're making right now. And so if they don't want to do that, then let things go awkward. Say, sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of a funky mood here, because this is really important that I know this, because I'm here to help you grow your revenue. But if we cannot even establish a baseline, then I'm not sure if this is the right thing to talk about, John. And then finally, in bucket 3, how to be on a call is, and that's a huge area, it is tapping into their personal why they do what they do, what they want to achieve, what's in it for them personally, how would their life change once they achieve the goal that you help them achieve. And it's beyond the, I just want to make 20, 30,000 a month. That is easily said. And if it's clear, of course, why people want to do that. But I want to know what's going to change for you personally. Give me an example of what you will want to do. Is it going to go on a vacation? Do you want to do a home improvement project that you've been putting off? Tell me what you're going to be able to do, because once I know that, then I'm able to later on, when I present you the offer, I can tie the offer to your personal goal. And that's going to be such an important and impact-making move here, because and this is not manipulative in any way. I know that some people may consider it as such, but no, because I know that I can help you if you are willing to trust me and to submit to my process and implement my process for yourself. I know I can get you there. So it's a win-win. I just need you to trust me. And the way to get people to trust you is if you have their goals, especially their personal goals, in mind when you are crafting the offer. They need to have the impression that the offer has been crafted with exactly them in mind. So on the call, I want you to ask them all of these 4 questions. First of all, where they want to be in 3 to 6 months' time and where they are right now in the area where you're selling them something. If it's revenue, it's revenue. If it's their weight, it's their weight. If it's operational efficiency, take a number and know what's a number, what's a KPI that they want to get to. Number 2, ask them what's keeping them from getting there on their own. You need the admission that they need your help. Because if they say, I could get there on my own, you say, okay, well, great, then I don't think that I'm the right fit for you. Awesome. Also ask them why they won't stay just where they are right now. Because that again reinforces they need to tell you that they are unhappy in the situation where they're at right now. I recently had someone who I asked this question, and he told me, and I was quite blown away by this, he says that he doesn't want to feel like a failure anymore because he's so competent in what he does, but he just wasn't able to monetize that. And that is a powerful admission. And that is something that you then want to use so that you can get him over the hump. And this is, again, it's to his own benefit. It really is. It's not, you're not trying to manipulate them. You just want them to trust you and trust themselves, because as long as you are an ethical actor, doing these types of questions and asking these type of questions is beneficial for everyone. It really is a win-win. So why not just stay where they are? And then also ask them, 4th question, how will their life be different when they have achieved the transformation you're offering? What will they be able to do? How will they feel? What will they specifically want to accomplish? And what will they want to do once they're done with that transformation that you're offering? So those were the 3 buckets about trusting you more. And a lot of it will come with time as you gain more experience and become better at what you do. Now, finally, let's cover the topic of trusting themselves, because you will often get people who are a great fit. You've ticked all the boxes in those 3 main trust buckets, and yet they still won't be signing up with you. In many of those cases, it is because they don't trust themselves. They just don't believe that They'll be able to achieve the change with your method for whichever reason, because they have a low self-image about themselves. They just think they're not disciplined enough and so on. So how can you overcome that? I believe that trusting you is a precondition for that. If you haven't tackled this, if you haven't ticked all those 3 trust buckets, then you won't even get to the topic of trusting themselves, because it's a precondition. But I don't think you can act on it directly. If somebody is signaling to you that they are just not sure if they can achieve that goal, if they don't trust themselves, they have a certain image of themselves to begin with, and that image is probably not very good. And what they need in you is a guide, a mentor, someone who they believe will be able to help them develop into someone who trusts themselves. And you will be the person, the more you do all those things I talked about before, and the better you do them. So the more case studies you have, the more professional your website looks, the better your brand is, the more professional your onboarding process is between contact and call. All of that, the more relevant your testimonials are, and so on. The better that is, the more you will come across as that guide or mentor who can help them develop into a better self. Okay, so to finish this part off, if I had to pick things from all of that, what I mentioned before, what I did that made the biggest difference to me in my recent journey of going from 10% to 35% closing rate, it would be 3 things. First of all, my website. I've had a new website that is much better branded than the one before, and that definitely has improved the impression of my personal professionalism. That's one thing. Especially the high quality photography. I spend quite a bit on that, and it is really, really worth it. I really believe that. Second is the process bucket. So I made these 2 videos that I ask people to go through before we go on the 15-minute call and the 60-minute call. That has made a big difference, I believe. Also in a way that I get a few people, not many, but a few people actually cancel the call after they've seen the video because they realize it's not for me. That's great. It improves my conversion rate on the calls because I have, because of that, fewer calls, but that's great. It's better than having the calls and missing and losing the sale. And then finally, the fact that I'm going deep into people's personal motivations and ask them what's in it for them personally. I think I have not been doing that well before, and now I'm doing that much better. So much about trust, 3 trust buckets, trusting themselves, and my 3 main areas that I've done to boost my trust. Would be great to hear from you, either via email or as comments to this episode. What has worked well for you? And if anything, what of the things that I've mentioned do you believe will make the biggest impact for yourself? Great. Now let's get into your questions. So Robert asks, I know you recommend to put client testimonials into my about section. Unfortunately, I only have client testimonials without a name. The people in question have approved the quote, but haven't allowed me to use their name. What would you recommend me to do? So first of all, client testimonials are, as I mentioned, super important, especially for trust building. So naturally, they matter a great deal. But on that note, if you allow me to quickly go on a tangent, because I was thinking, what is actually the hierarchy of client testimonials? Obviously, this quote with no name that you have, Robert, is probably the worst of the worst, right? You could have literally made that up, and there's no way how anybody could prove that this is real. There's no name. Nobody can even go and ask the supposed person who said it, hey, have you worked with Robert? So there's just no option there. So that is the lowest. Then probably the next one is quote with just the name, like the first name, John. It's not much better because it could have also been made up. But then if you have full name, of course, that's then one level above. And then, of course, quote with name and picture, name and company, name and picture and company, and so on. Though those are okay. Those are pretty decent. The more, of course, the more Googleable they are, the more LinkedIn findable they are, the better, because you always have to assume that somebody will reach out to that person and ask, hey, I saw you worked with Robert. Can you recommend him? So that would be one way to do this. Actually, what I had recently is somebody who asked to speak to one of my clients, and I said, because I had several clients who gave me video testimonials, I said, listen, I'm not really comfortable doing this, because the clients that I've worked with who gave me video testimonials, that's kind of their way of showing their gratitude, because they didn't have to do it. And so I don't want to put further strain on them. But that's why video testimonials, and this is kind of like the next level, are the best, especially if you can do them as a video interview where you talk to them and you really go deep into what the transformation was about. Like, where were they before? Then how was it working with you? And where are they now? That kind of structure is super key. And that can be done in 10 minutes. You don't have to have that long. The one that I have with my client Dana was about like 20 minutes is the whole thing. So those types of client testimonials are super, super valuable. And you can, even when you don't have them yet, you can say, listen, the price for my program or whatever I'm selling is XYZ, is price. I'd be willing to take $500 off if we can now commit to, if you're happy with the service, that you'd give me a video interview, that I can interview you about how it was, because I want the testimonials. And people will say yes. Good. So that is the highest video interviews. Slightly below that are video testimonials. They're still great, but theoretically they always could have been kind of people who, like your buddies, you know, who you asked to give you a video testimony. It's not they are very powerful, because also they can be found on LinkedIn and so on. So that's good. And then there's LinkedIn recommendations in the middle. So as you remember, I started with quotes with no name, then quotes with name, picture, and company. Above that are LinkedIn recommendations. Why? Because people had to actually take action and at least make a bunch of clicks and at least copy and paste, probably write this text themselves. Any kind of quotes with name and company, most often you have done the quote themselves and only run it past the person in question. So that's why our LinkedIn recommendation are, in my opinion at least, in hierarchy above those type of quotes. And then above LinkedIn recommendations are video testimonials as a quick clip, and then full video interviews. So that is just a bit of an overview, because I was thinking, what is the right hierarchy of those testimonials? Some of them are better than others. Okay, so that point aside, Robert, you say that I only have client testimonies without a name. First of all, obviously, if you can, get back to these people and ask them if there's any way how they could at least give you their name, the approval to use their name. And if not, then you're basically at the same place like anyone is who doesn't have client testimonials. You just need to go out there, and always, whenever you are talking with a new prospective client, you need to make it part of the deal that you say, okay, yes, this is how we're going to be working together. And by the way, is it okay? I would like to ask you, if after we've worked together and you were happy with the work, that I'm going to get a testimonial. This is really important to me. Would that be okay? And if you look them deep in the eye, it's probably going to be, the more corporate it is, the more difficult it will be to put that into the contract. But at least if you had like an email trail about this, best if you ask them via email. Hey, by the way, it would be great if we could agree on that testimonial if you're happy, because these things really matter to me. And yes, I would honestly, if you don't have testimonials yet, I would offer discounts, provided they are willing to commit to a video testimonial, at least one where they speak into the camera. So yeah, that would be my advice. I think having that is so important that I would be willing to offer discounts to them, because also the discount puts then an obligation on them. They cannot just wiggle out of it afterwards, because they know they got the discount for this specific reason. If you just say the price is X, oh, by the way, could you also do a testimonial? Then they can say yes, and then they can not do it in the end. However, if there was a discount, you can always say, sorry, John, but it feels a bit iffy. I did ask you, I did offer this discount and you took it on the assumption that you would be able to give me a video testimonial. You were very happy with the work. Could I please ask for that testimonial? Cool. I hope that was useful, Robert. Next question. Martin asks, what do you think of selling teeth whitening products on LinkedIn? Now, I'm not a B2C expert. I'm more in the B2B place. But I can tell you, LinkedIn is probably not your best bet for this. Why? First of all, in terms of if you wanted to do paid ads, LinkedIn doesn't offer behavioral targeting. Like on Facebook, you can say anybody who is into, could be I have like the teeth whitening topic, anything cosmetic dentistry, anybody who is following some kind of brand in this space. LinkedIn does not offer that. So in terms of paid ads, it's going to be very difficult. If you are talking about organic, yes, you could post content in this space just to get a bit of a followership going. But especially because this type of product is a low customer lifetime value, I don't think that you could anything teeth whitening. I think the highest I ever paid was some $300, $400, I think. So you cannot really do organic outbound, start conversations with people and then guiding them to maybe you could guide them to a landing page, but you'd essentially have to do advertising. And for that, LinkedIn is just not suitable. So I haven't heard of anything that has been successfully marketed on LinkedIn that was less than $2,000 customer lifetime value. So I'd be relatively pessimistic on the topic of teeth whitening products on LinkedIn. But if anyone has heard of a counter example, I would love to hear it. Next question, Iman asks, I published a few videos, but I'm getting about 3 times as many views on normal posts. So normal post, only text post, give Iman 3 times more views. Got it. Okay, sorry, I didn't quite get that. I wonder if video is the right thing to do for me. Well, Iman, that's perfectly normal. Video gets less exposure by LinkedIn. However, you also have to consider what is counted as a video view. There we know from LinkedIn that they count 3 seconds of video viewing as a view. We don't know what a text view is on LinkedIn. We really don't know. It could be lingering for half a second in the newsfeed. It could just be that people scroll past it in the newsfeed. That's a view. We don't know. So that's one thing. That's why I would say that video views have a much bigger impact than text post views. So that's one thing, because obviously the what counts as a view is probably stronger on video. But besides that, it's so important to be on video on LinkedIn because people then develop a certain affinity towards you. They feel like they know you. I had that recently on a call with someone. They said, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they said something like, oh, I feel like I'm a little bit starstruck because I've watched so many of your videos, so I feel like I know you. So this way you really can build a relationship with people. And I keep hammering this. You don't need to build relationships via networking, one-on-one networking, where you're just talking to people in a one-on-one way. That's not how to build relationships in the 21st century. Relationships are being built via quality content that you give people an easy access to consume. That's it. So I would say that video is particularly important for relationship building because people see how you talk, they see your mannerisms, they see how you, what kind of humor you have, this kind of situational awareness and so on. All of that is so key. So Iman, I would not worry at all about your low video views. Keep doing them. I would say mix it up. If you publish if you publish daily, do 2 videos a week and 3 text posts, and just make sure that the engagement that you get comes from the right people. That is the single most important metric. I'd rather have 2 likes from relevant people than 20 likes from irrelevant people. It really is like that, because over time, this is going to compound. The percentage of people who engage with your content, who are in your target audience, are a bellwether for your future content and general business success. Really, mark my words, this is far more important. This is why also pods are so wrong. It's so bad to use pods because you are usually getting engagement from wrong people. Unless they really happen to be in your target audience, which could be, I still don't recommend doing pods even in this way, but only getting 50, 70 likes from irrelevant people is only going to skew the LinkedIn algorithm. But I'm getting on a tangent. You asked about video views. So that's my advice. Don't worry about the lower view count on videos. Just keep producing great content. Quality is the number one metric you should be focused on and nothing else. Jocelyn asks, I have trouble starting the conversation in outbound prospecting. What openers have worked the best for you? Okay, it's a valid question. I would just like to challenge you a little bit, Jocelyn, on this, because canned openers, can as in they come out of a can, they are a crutch. You don't start conversations with people. I always I use the image of a networking party or a cocktail party. You would not have a fixed statement how you open conversations with people. You would not have like one statement that when you go to a cocktail party and you, at the end of the evening, you will have spoken to 15 different people. All of these conversation openers would have been different. You probably would not start with saying, nice shoes, or how do you like those tuna sandwiches? You would not say that. It would always be something situational. At least that's what I recommend. Now, the best openers are about, and those were my best openers are whenever I see something on their profile that catches my attention. It really is like that. If they have a photo of in the background with the dog, I asked them about the dog. If some of the content that they said genuinely resonated with me, that's really important. Don't fake it. If you think that content is crap, compliment them about something else. Look into their bio, look where they have worked, look who you have in common. That's probably the worst, unless you really cannot find anything else. Mention somebody who you know in common, because generally people don't know people in common. Look at who recommended them, or commend them on that. Say, oh, I see that this person thought that you are a brilliant strategist. That's awesome. What kind of work did you do for them? Whatever, just remark on something on their profile. And only if really you cannot come up with something, which I think you should always be able to come up with something. Worst case, just Google them and see if you can find something about them for example, in the news. Hey, I saw that you were recently in the news. That's pretty awesome. And then ask them something about that. So generally, I recommend against those type of canned openers. However, I do accommodate for the situation that you need to sometimes get those openers out. So rather than you agonizing for 10 minutes what you should say, Jocelyn, I recommend that you have a few nice, friendly statements that you have as a fallback. You have them easily accessible in a Google Doc or a diagram that I recommend. I cannot remember the name of the program. I'm going to put it in the show notes. The diagram that it's a canned opener that you have that is friendly, that you over time test that people actually respond to. And it should be something like the opener is some kind of nice compliment, something like very generic, friendly, nice to be connected, John, always great to be connected with smart people in the so-and-so industry. Then you say something in the vein of, well, actually, I don't have to say in the vein. I can give you mine, what I use as my fallback. I use this very infrequently now. I feel I'm always inspired enough to say something about them. So once my flowchart, that's it. It's called diagrams.net. So go there, it's diagrams.net, and you can easily integrate that into Google Docs. And that then gives you a really nice and easy way to build flowcharts where you can super quickly zoom in and out and write those prefabricated statements that you can then deploy. So what do I say? One of my older ones is, how were the last couple of months since you started your business? I usually then reference how long it was that they started their business. I say, I imagine it's been chaotic. 2020 was insane for me too, since I changed my business and built my client base and offerings from scratch. There seems to be quite a bit of competition in your space, though. Out of curiosity, has it been a smooth process for you getting interest, getting sales appointments, and landing your first clients? That was my canned opener. I got a pretty decent response rate on this. I don't use it all that much anymore. It's just my kind of fallback. But that can be your solution. Okay. So let me know, Jocelyn, if that was useful, and I can cover and elaborate on it more if you have any follow-up. Cool. Next question. Aisha asks, I'm wondering if I should write a book to help me get my name out there. Oh, interesting topic. Yes, I remember that. I wouldn't expect that the book gets me new clients, but once I'm firmly established in the minds of my prospects as the go-to expert who has a book, I think I would have an easier time selling to them. It's a really interesting question to write a book. I would strongly surmise, or at least I would suggest, that you should see a book as an accelerant to an already burning fire. I know that there's advice out there. Always people try to say, yeah, you should write a book, write a book, write a book. I know several people who didn't have much going on in their consulting business, and they spent a huge amount of time writing a book, thinking that it will open doors, it's going to get them interviews and so on, all those typical things, speaking engagements, and that with that, they would then kickstart the business. I think that is a huge, huge mistake. So Aisha, I don't know exactly your circumstances, but please don't do that. A book is a great accelerant to an already burning fire. So you need to have a client acquisition process in place. You need to either you spend money or you spend time in getting clients, but you know that if you put a certain amount of resource, time or money in, clients come out at the end. That is your number one goal right now. If you don't have that yet, please don't write a book. And then once you have that really established, you have several clients who were very happy with what you did, and you have that kind of in the bag, and you know that your method really, really works, then I think it's okay to write a book, but also zoom out, look at it from a bigger perspective, and don't think that the book is the only way how you can accelerate that fire. Because, for example, I'm accelerating my fire via a podcast. This is another way. I do plan to write a book at some point, but for me, the podcast now is way better because I'm getting so much insight into what you guys are thinking. I get all these questions that are really a great window into my market and what people are actually caring about. So that is for me a great way to accelerate an already existing process. I know the podcast, it doesn't have a huge listenership yet, of course. I'm just starting out, but as I'm promoting it, as people are coming on, as hopefully word of mouth spreads and so on, and I'm using the video clips from the podcast on LinkedIn and elsewhere, that is great because it's going to help accelerate the already existing fire. And I have an absolutely predictable process now. I know if I put I know that if I start 100 conversations, I know I'm going to get one client that is now pretty reliable. Sure, sometimes it's 150, sometimes it's 70, but overall it averages out into 100. And I just know if I put out enough quality content, also the inbound clients will come. I know that. So that is that. So please don't consider, Aisha, please don't consider a book to be, number one, your only accelerant to the fire. I think other accelerants could be public speaking, also professionalizing your personal branding. That is an accelerant. Getting on podcasts, getting interviewed, doing some PR, possibly even doing TV. All of those are great, valid accelerants to an already existing fire. So don't think that the book is the only way. Cool. Oh, and also I do want to challenge your statement about not expecting that your book would get you clients. Why wouldn't it? I don't know which industry you're in, but I could have looked it up actually. Sorry, but I don't know which industry you are in, but I cannot imagine an industry where if you have a book out and then it's clear that you are a consultant in this space in which you have published a book, why wouldn't you be able to get that book to get you clients? So I sometimes see this with people who are real experts. I'm not saying this is your case, Aisha, but I see this with people who are experts that they are so kind of worried to not wanting to come across as salesy that they don't see the commercial potential of a book, right? The book is a huge commercial potential. If you really display, it's like a salesman for you, right? And you can have 1,000 of them walking around the world and successfully selling on your behalf. So I would love to hear back from you, Aisha, and tell me why you think that the book wouldn't be able to get you clients. Sure, it's gonna get your name out there, but with that come client opportunities. Cool. Good. We're running short on time. Salman asks, how do you find the people to start conversations with in the first place? Well, that is, have you really understood your target audience, Salman, right? You need to know who you are selling to, and then you will find those relevant people. Have a persona in mind. Whatever. In my case, this is a solopreneur, coach, consultant, small B2B CEO. And then I do two things. I do behavioral targeting, meaning I look for content topics that people are engaging on in this space. And I look at who looks like they could be a potential client for me. And then I add them saying something nice and friendly. And then I start a conversation. When I see that somebody's engaging on somebody else's post and I see, yeah, they sound like they could be a client, I just add them. That's one way. The other one is demographic targeting. You just do a search in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and that is going to give you also a good list of people. So this is how you find people to start conversations with. And then Pete, that's our last question. Pete asks, is it possible to focus purely on inbound, i.e. content on LinkedIn, and ignore outbound prospecting? Good question. Absolutely interesting question. And I think it is possible to purely focus on inbound if you are completely starting out. And these is generally the people that I work with who are relatively early in the journey, because my value proposition is I help you get from 0 to 10K a month, which is where you are now, to 10 to 20K a month. That's what I can help you to do. So I'm working with relative, small solopreneurs and beginners. In that case, I really recommend against that. It's a moonshot. It's a moonshot to try to do content that will get you enough clients to feed you and to bring in enough revenue. That I would not recommend to rely on it. I always tell my clients that the first few clients of the what's going to get you from 0 to 10K a month is going to be largely 90 to 99% of the cases will be coming from outbound. You simply do not have the traction yet. People don't have that familiarity with you if you've only been doing content for a month or two to reliably get you inbound. Now, I'm now on a considerably higher level, and half of my revenue is now coming in from inbound. But I've been doing this now. I've been consistently posting for the last 14 months, almost every day. I take Saturdays off, but other than that, I post practically every single day. And now I'm getting a good amount of my revenue is coming in from inbound. So it is possible. There are people who have done it. They are almost always invariably are extremely charismatic. They're really good with content. They have relatively high production value, and they are just, I have to say, naturals with content. They're really, really good with it. And yes, these are the people who can, in a month, for example, this lady I interviewed, Julie Ruska, she started out in April last year with some 300 followers. Now she has 50,000. Okay. And she has not, based on what she told me, she has not been part of any pod or any other kind of fake acceleration thing. It was genuine followership that developed over time. So it is possible. I would not recommend it unless you have a track record of being successful with content that people really are flocking to you. I would recommend that you don't try this at home. Okie doke. And with that, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. I hope you found something valuable in there. Please submit questions on stateofclientacquisition.com. I'd love to hear from you. Anyone who asked this week's question, please let me know if I have answered them to your full satisfaction. And I really mean it. It's really important, especially in this early stage of the podcast, that I get your feedback on whether I answered it fully and so on. If you just can give me a thumbs up, that's great. And if something I have missed, then no. And if you want to discuss something more in depth, please come on the call. We always do them on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. CET. That's Central European time. So just translate that into your time zone. Great hanging out with you today. Thank you so much for your questions, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox-Graham. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. Unless I announce it otherwise, the live podcast is recorded on Wednesdays each week at 7 p.m. Central European Time. That's 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can always join by going to www.talktomichael.com. That's Michael without an E. But if you sign up at the podcast page, you'll get the link in an email each week. I'll talk to you in the next episode.